And I was hoping Rob was about to introduce our plenary speakers. Since Rob is not here, then let me introduce our plenary speakers. Our plenary speakers. All right, go. Thank you. Thank you. Please start your presentation.
Oh, so okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for the time. So, hello from Indonesia. We are now in Malang, attending Asia TOEFL. In fact, I just finished my presentation, and Anik is part of the committee. So our presentations touch upon the implementation of our digital extensive reading program by using X-Reading. So the title is not a tale of two cities, but a tale of two universities. Ibu Anik represents Universitas Negeri Malang, and I'm from Universitas Negeri Surabaya. What we have in common is that we're both from universities, especially our English department, prepare students to be teachers of English. And we've been using extensive reading, both the physical and the digital version since maybe even before 2000. But yeah, I wanted to use 2000 as the baseline, the starting point in which both universities, both departments of English actually integrated this program in our intensive English course. So I'm going to begin by introducing our extensive reading at UNESA. So since 2000, we had a program called Intensive English Course. So this course was offered to freshman students in the first semester. So instead of splitting or having discrete language skills, all language skills were integrated, and extensive reading was part of it. Since 2000, extensive reading has always been a compulsory program in UNESA, and I think it's also the same with Malang. And we also used graded readers. So we've been using the physical ones, and I think we all know the challenges of using physical graded readers. Books keep missing, but it shouldn't reduce our motivation to use extensive reading. So as I mentioned, this program is targeted to freshman students. So with all the challenges that I mentioned, the missing books, and sometimes it's difficult for us to track students' progress. When we met Paul, and then Paul introduced us to X-Reading, we were more than delighted to embrace this. So since 2019, UNESA, the English department at UNESA, has been implementing X-Reading as part of our intensive English course. I think we could just open everything there so we could see. Wait a second. I think we have the. Yeah. So this chart shows us the comparison between the implementation for 3 different cohorts. Basically, the reading target that we set remains the same. So we require students to read for 140,000 words minimum in 2 semesters. I think I need to correct this. So in the first semester, students need to read at the minimum word count of 600,000, and then the second semester for another 80,000. So that's 140,000 altogether. So in 2019 cohort, we use extensive reading class not as a credited program. So students read the books at extensive X-Reading anywhere they wanted to read. So basically, there was no structured follow-up activities. Some supervisors, because we divided these 168 students into 8 groups, so each supervisor actually had different ways of motivating their students. Some use follow-up activities, but in general, we did not really have a structured one. But because the program was relatively a success, it invited interest from Relo. So in the second year for 2020 cohort, we combined our X-reading program with supplementary activities, and these supplementary activities were managed by our virtual English language fellow, Rachel Wang. So we presented actually at ERO last year. And then in 2021, we actually go back to, the way we do this in 2019. So students read the books outside the class. There are no structured follow-up activities, but we learn that we need to do something other than asking students to read. So some skills. So we had some supervisors actually selecting certain texts to be used in their own classes other than the intensive English course. Here we have the comparison of a number of students who use X-reading. So we have two study programs, English language education and English literature. The number of students are relatively the same actually, because that's the quota that we have. But what is interesting is actually this: the average number of words read after the second semester. Let's just go back to this slide. Yeah, in 2019 and 2021, we did not have structured follow-up activities. We did that only with 2020 cohort. But the result is quite interesting. We see that in 2019, in average, no class actually reached the minimum target of reading of the words read. We did have some students who were really, beyond our expectation. We had one student who actually read more than 1 million words. But again, that was just an anomaly. In average, it was actually below 100,000. In the second year, with the follow-up activities, and since students also produced books facilitated by Rachel, we could say that the minimum target was achieved. In this year, with no structured activities, but the supervisors actually learned to do their own things. For example, since I'm actually based in literature, I could say that I have more authority to ask the supervisors from literature study program to keep reminding students to read so that they could reach their target. The program for this year would end at the end of August, and we see here that it already exceeds our expectation. However, the students from the education study program, I do not really have direct access to the students. I could only ask the supervisors to remind the students, but that's just as far as I can go. So we have reached only 100,000. That is still better, yeah, as compared to 2019. But I'm still optimistic, yeah, because at least we still have 3 weeks to go. So I'm positive that we could reach the average number of words read. These are the results of our post survey for 2021 students. So we have this student post survey with this question. I would like the English department to help me improve my reading comprehension by. It turns out that practically all students want to have follow-up activities in different forms. Yeah, book club meetings, give us more assignments, or please don't give us assignments, but let's do more fun activities. Certainly more books. Please guide us. They want the supervisors to mentor them on how to read better. Please give us a higher target. Please give us reward. Please integrate the X reading into other skills. But nobody said, I don't want to read anymore. Yeah, so this is really promising. And we also noted some other uses of X reading other than extensive reading. This is what I actually did in my class last semester with 2020 cohort. So remember, 2020 cohort was the one who was assisted by the fellow. So we subscribe to X reading for the second year for them, to be used not for extensive reading, but for other classes. So in my Western Society and Culture course, we discuss British and American society and culture. And in the second half, when we focus on American society and culture, I assign students to read these 15 books about, of course, the history, the political situation, and I think what I especially like is the multiculturalism there. So one of the course learning outcome is that we would like students to be able to respond to text on intercultural issues and also to respond to their friends' responses. This is an example of students' responses. Oh, wait a minute. I asked students to write their review using these points. Talk about the level of difficulty of the books that you read. Talk about any vocabularies that you think are complicated, any interesting facts or events. And in relation to the course, I asked them to bring connection with British history that we discussed in the first half of the semester. So this is a screenshot that I took from our Google Classroom. Point 1, 2, 3, 4 refers to the reviews, and if you look at the replies, it really opens up space for students to give their own voices. The first student agrees that there is no relation with British history. So she said the same thing as the writer, but the other two students said, no, there is a correlation between this book and British history. I didn't say anything, but I just, let them discuss this book. So I thought that this is also a way to create a reader community or literature circle using courses other than extensive reading. Just some examples of studies that we've conducted on X reading, done by our students and also fellow lecturers. So some students, some undergraduate students, wrote about perceptions of X reading. Students actually request for harder quizzes. They thought that it's too easy. Some students prefer to read only rather than reading while listening. There are two projects in progress now, done by MA students, X reading in relation to learner autonomy and reader identity. So I guess that, okay, so the implications. With all those challenges, we strongly believe that ER should be followed, accompanied by follow-up activities to keep students engaged. And I've asked my fellow lecturers to use X reading for other activities other than extensive reading program. So the success of X reading program really depends on this provision. Thank you very much. So, Anik.
Right, thank you, Bu Tiwi. So in Universitas Negeri Malang or UM, extensive reading has gone through a few changes. Actually, before 2011, that's when I was still studying in the undergraduate. Like we have so many books that we have to read. We can choose, but it was the printed reading. And after 2011, actually, we have we offered more than one course of extensive reading. So it happens 3 times. So it was in the 3rd semester, 4th semester, and also 5th semester. But since 2019, there has been a big shift, actually, that we changed that extensive reading should not be done later. It should be done earlier. And that's what happened. We use X reading. So it, before 2019, so it was compulsory. And then it was like any relevant reading materials can be used. And then the target were sophomores and juniors. And we do have a course which we call as extensive reading course. And then after, there were only one course, and then we also have 2 courses, and later on we have 3 courses of extensive reading, and mostly was non-digital extensive reading. But after 2018, so starting from 2019, extensive reading is still a compulsory part of the curriculum. So it is part of our curriculum. And then we use graded readers, and then we use, it target the freshmen. And yes, we use digital book. We use X reading. So we start subscription after we were introduced by Ibu Tiwi. So when Ibu Tiwi started, later on, then we also started the program in Universitas Negeri Malang. The number of the students using X reading since 2019, at that time, we only have about 60 because they are all from the literature study program. So we missed the education study program at that time. However, in 2020, actually, we have both. So we have 4 classes of education, English language education, and then 2 classes for the literature students, language and literature study program. So that is why we have 120 students for the education study program, and we have 60 for the literature and language study program. And it's the same thing in 2021. And if you can see 2022 here, it means that actually we are still going to use X reading this year. We will start our new semester by the end of this month, on the 29th of August. We will have more education students who will join, the ELE students will join, because like the 2019 students missed that times actually. So we have to we have to exchange that because it is part of the compulsory courses. Yeah. So as you can see, from 2019 to 2021, ER is a structured and also provided by good facilities. Yes, so it means that we have the curriculum, we have the course outline, we have the X reading, we have the books, and we do have activities or post-reading activities. Yeah, so this is the examples of our course profile. As you can see, you have my name and one of my colleague, Yvonne. So we have the course overview, and we have the CLO here, course learning outcomes. And we also have activities that we usually do during the extensive reading course. And we have even provide students with the chance, for example, to do the online, offline, and also independent study. So as you can see, in the classroom, they would share one of the stories read on X reading. And then outside the class, they will interview the lecturers or friends from other classes about learning to read in the first, second, or foreign language. Okay. And then as a kind of homework, they have to read, listen, or watch personally selected texts in English. And then they have to complete their weekly extensive learning journal. And we also have the assessment for that. While perhaps some people would say that there is no assessment for extensive reading, we do actually assess from the way, from the number of the words also that the students do, and also the post activities. So for example, if we ask them to create a poster, then we would score, we would provide score for the poster. So last year, actually, we also, what is that? We also presented in ERA 2021 with Ibu Fenty Siregar, Ibu Yvonne, and Ibu Lanoke. Yeah. And the result of our study, actually, we look at the result of the vocabulary test. Okay. Sorry with the announcement. The students scored better at 3,000 and 4,000 levels compared to 1,000 and 2,000 levels. And it was because the students, actually, the one who just graduated from high school, they use the book, the textbook being used mostly at the 3,000 or 4,000 level. So that is why then they have lower score in the 1,000 and 2,000 levels. But then we could also see that extensive reading significantly improve students' vocabulary. Another studies. So we can see here, this is one of our undergraduate students. She investigated the students' perspective of using X reading. Yeah? And the result is that students actually love X reading. And yeah, so they say that X reading is actually appropriate. The website is also easy to access and motivate students to read. And most students actually read more books or words than the expected target. So it was expected to finish by the end of the semester is like 100 to 20,000 words, but they end up, most of them end up like 150,000 words. Yeah. So implication from both studies that we think students at high school may need to be introduced to 1,000 and 2,000 most frequent words through extensive reading, but the intensive reading may introduce the 3,000 to 4,000 words because it helps them to tackle problems like the one that they have to face, you know, the test, the final test. And then also X reading is an appropriate source for an ER course. And the fact that the website is easy to access and motivate students to read as many as they can make us still want to continue using X reading. Okay, I think that's all that we could share. A tale of two universities. Thank you very much. Okay, right. Is there any questions or perhaps some feedback from the audience for us?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
It looks like maybe Paul has a question or a comment.
Just a quick question, Tiwi, what happened to your assistant from the State Department? You mentioned her name. I'm sorry, I forgot. What?
Rachel Wang?
Yeah, Rachel. Yeah. What happened to her?
Well, her contract was only for 1 year, so yeah, she continued her jobs there, and I think she's now working in George Mason University. Yeah, but we are actually planning to develop a project to help students write stories using the local wisdom. Yeah, but it is still at the initiation stage. We haven't actually started implementing this.
I see. Yeah, that it sounded like a very interesting project when you talked about it last year. So maybe we can communicate about it later on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see that Adil has his hand up for a question.
Hi, thanks for sharing these great insights. And I have a question about the study you had where you said students scored better at the 3,000 and 4,000 level, but not at the 1,000 and 2,000. So I have my own interpretation, but I'd like to hear yours. Why do you think students with lower proficiency couldn't demonstrate as much improvement as, I mean, contrary to the students with higher language proficiency in that study, 21?
Okay, right. Oh, well, the study is still in progress. Actually, we haven't done any writing up of of an article, so it is not a final yet. But yes, we think that the students actually, this is because of the textbook that they use in senior high school. So the textbook mostly use the 3,000 and 4,000 word levels. So thus, when they come into the university, then they don't have any issues in the 3,000 and 4,000 word levels, but it seems that they are not familiar with the 1,000 and 2,000 word levels. So that's what we finally conclude at that time. Yes, so that's the idea, Adil. Is that answering your question?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Rob Waring has his hand up.
Well, yes, I do. Hello, hi. Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation, and thank you very much. I'm sorry I couldn't introduce you at the beginning. I had a visitor who came to my door, and I was trying to get away, and I couldn't get away, and I missed by 2 minutes. So sorry about that. Yeah. So you mentioned before you were going to get your students to write some stories.
Oh, yeah. So
And I'm very curious to hear about what you're going to do and how you're going to display them, how you're going to distribute them. Can we read some? Can my students read some of your book?
Yes, I would actually love to share you the link. But the idea was that when the students were facilitated by our virtual fellow, they produced as many as 150 drafts of picture books, and they're bilingual, and all stories are written. They were written using our local wisdom.
I see.
So the project that we are working on now, but as I said, still at the initiation stage, we want to edit the books and then publish them, inviting illustrators to help with the illustration. And for this, we will actually be assisted by Relo.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, hopefully the grant will be materialized very shortly, so that the books are ready for distribution. In the proposal, we mentioned that the books will be freely distributed, and we're going to use them for community outreach, because at UNESA we have a program. It's a literacy community outreach in which we send our students to be teacher assistants in some elementary schools in remote areas, schools with very low access to books. So we would like to use those books.
I see. So you said they're going to be bilingual books, so like Bahasa Indonesia one side and then English on the other one, yeah?
Yeah.
And so and these are going to be basically within your school or within your district only? Who will read these books? The students in your district?
Well, again, the idea that we mentioned, that the proposal is that we are going to distribute the books to schools that need more books.
No, okay, so literacy. Okay. So literacy development.
Yeah, that's right. And we will also conduct a training for teachers about how to use those books. So it could be used for reading aloud, for shared reading, I'll be happy to share you the links. So that
Please, I'd love to see. One of the projects I'd like to work on is to try to collect as many student stories from around the world as we can and put them on a central place somewhere. I mean, X reading is one possibility, where student read stories that you can just get student stories from Poland, from Ethiopia. I think it'll be a fantastic resource for students to have access to.
Right. The books are really amazing. They just need to get, language, touch language editing, but
Sure.
as far as the stories are can go, they're great.
Yes, they'll need a little bit of English edit, probably by the teacher, just to make sure that there's no major mistakes and things like that. But that would be a really lovely project. So if it develops a bit more, I'd love to hear a little bit more. Paul, you have your hand up?
Yeah, say on Sunday, there'll be a teacher presenting on a graded reader writing competition that he conducted. And he's presented on it before, but now it was in the process, but they completed it this February and it was very, very successful. So I think on Sunday morning, 11 o'clock Japan time, he'll be presenting on that. So if you're able to watch, I think you'll be very interested. Although their students, it was part of the classwork. They spent an entire semester, each student writing their own graded reader.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul, for informing us.
Thank you.
There's also a 2-hour forum breakout room from 6 to 8 p.m. today on materials writing, where some volunteers are hosting the forum and people are able to attend. There's a comment and a clarification question in the chat, which I will read in case not everyone is looking at it. Anik, it's addressed to you. You said that extensive reading is introduced earlier. Is extensive reading taught in semester 1 at UNESA and UM? This is a question from Ati Herwati.
Thank you. Yes, it is. Used to be for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th semester, but now or since 2019, it is for the first semester student in UM. Yes.
Yeah, at UNESA, it's a different case. We used to have a course called extensive reading by using physical graded readers, but since 2019, when we use X reading, we no longer have this course called extensive reading. However, it is still made compulsory. The way we make it compulsory is the grading, from the reading target and also from the follow-up activities. It's going to be used as one of the components for language skills grades.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying.
And I would like to show you, actually, this is the English self-access centers. So as you can see, we have rows of books here. So it used to be, we have Fenty here. we have books around us. It used to be the place where students actually read their graded readers. But with the X reading, we have both choice. So we start with X reading. And if the student still wants to read some books, they also have it available for them to read in UM. Thank you.
Could I ask, do you have like a library manager? Is it open at a certain time, or how is the library managed?
It is open for everyone, and actually it is later open for not only English students, but also for if you are studying physics, if you are studying sport education, if you want to read the English book, you can go here and access it.
It's
anytime. Yes, because it's self-access. Anyone will be welcome to read here.
Do any of the books disappear?
Hopefully not. So that is why we would have someone to look after the book so that it will not go missing.
It's always a challenge, I think. I don't think students are actually wanting to steal them. It's just that they forget to bring them back, or they miss the day to return them, and then they don't, and it's too embarrassing to give it back 3 weeks later. So they just hope teacher forgets. And then, I had that with one of my students, was 32 books her mother sent back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 32 books. Yeah, so we have to be very careful about honesty systems.
Yeah, and unlike a textbook where they have the same textbook the whole semester or the whole year, a graded reader, they change it every couple of days.
Right.
They're small, they lose track of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was one of the reasons I created X Reading, was just because my students I bought all the books in my library at that time. And, you know, my students never stole them, but yeah, every year, 10% would disappear. So it was, and Japan, yeah, I'm sure the students didn't do it on purpose. It just, yeah, they would forget them. And like Rob said, I'd have a student at the last day say, oh yeah, I found 20 books under my bed or something like that.
And to be perfectly honest, I left my university in March and I found some graded readers from my university down here in my bookshelf. So I'm stealing too. I have to take them back to school.
Yeah, okay. Right.
It's everybody's challenge then.
Yeah, thank you. So, you still have
One quick question, if I may, ladies. I think my question is related a little bit to what Adil asked earlier on. The weaker students, the less able students, you mentioned that they did not benefit as much as the higher proficiency students. I think what we need to find out, I wonder if you have data to show which of the among the lower proficiency students who did not benefit from the extensive reading program, and which among them benefited more from doing extensive reading. I think that'll be interesting. The reason I'm asking is that there's a very clear link between quantity of reading and improvement in language proficiency. It doesn't matter whether you're high proficiency or lower proficiency. As long as you do a lot of reading and the quantity is there, then chances are much, much higher that your proficiency in terms of fluency development, in terms of maybe writing ability or maybe speaking ability should increase. So I'm just wondering if you have data to show. If not, then it's good for you to find out, you know, who among your students.
Yeah. Oh, that's not really part of our studies, but I do remember a student who is actually a very good one, and he's an avid reader, but he thought I actually wanted to read more complicated and a bit controversial books, and I couldn't find those books in X Reading. But again, such students would need to be given different treatments. But as long as we could hear their voices, then I think we'll be able to provide them with books that they need. But I do agree with what you said. So I believe in Matthew effect. Good readers will be better readers if they read more and more. So again, with extensive reading, it's quantity over quality.